Welcome to the Jira Agile training. The main objective of this training is to show you how can we manage all the activities of Globant's Agile framework in Jira. The main topics of the agenda are the following. First of all, we will tell you about all the licenses we have from the Atlassian suite. Then we are going to see the Globant's Agile framework and all the artifacts and meetings related that can be managed on the tool. Finally, we will see all the reports that we can use with Jira. Actually, in Globant we have a bunch of tools developed by Atlassian that we usually mention them as Atlassian suite. These are Jira is the tool that allowed us to manage all the project activities, since tasks management and bugs tracking to project risk management or incidents. Associated with Jira, we can find the Jira Agile plugin that makes easier, in an agile way, the management or planning of our project. This training is about this tool. Confluence makes easier the documentation management of the project. It's a collaborative software that lets you create, edit, and share wikis. A wiki is a web page that can be edited from any web browser using a simplified markup language. Crucible and Fisheye, these tools are different but works together. Fisheye is a source code management tool. We can navigate through Subversion, Hit, CVS, etc. Also notifies the changes made on the branches or tags. Crucible helps us with the peer code review. Crucible facilitates change review, comment and record outcomes efficiently. Bamboo is a continuous integration and release management tool that ties automated builds, tests, and releases together in a single workflow. Finally, we have SonarQube, that is not part of the Atlassian suite, that helps us with the entire management of our project. It's a code quality management platform dedicated to analyze and measure the technical quality of the projects. Let's make a little review of the Agile framework in Globant to understand later how these practices are carried over in Jira. Our Agile framework is partially based on Scrum methodologies because some of the practices were modified due ISO and CMMI certifications. Globant at the sprint 0 as a good practice. This sprint usually have the same duration as a development one. But in this one, the teammates meet each other, environments are defined, the project is tailored, the team takes training, defines the criteria, defines the first version of the architecture or design documentation. All those tasks should be planned and carried on Jira using the generic task issue type. Later on this training, we will see how we can create a generic task in Jira. Release planning, release date are defined before the project starts. Every release have one or more sprints. Backlog refinement, that include user story refinements, story points estimation, prioritization, understanding of the product backlog items, and the output of this practice is that the product backlog should be tracked in Jira. Iteration cycle. Here we can find all the practices defined on Scrum methodologies. Planning sprints. Setting up meetings can help us to planificate sprints. A sprint is a cycle with a defined period of time in which we have to complete all the user stories associated. Frequently, these periods of time go between 2 or 4 weeks, but normally in Globant, those sprints are from 2 weeks. On the sprint planning, the team defines which user stories are going to be developed on the sprint. Also, the user stories are estimated in story points and the tasks associated in hours. Once this plan is finished, the team engages with the tasks assigned, closes the sprint backlog, and starts working. The iteration development. The development starts and we have daily meetings. These daily meetings are always at the same time and in the same place every day. And this kind of meetings improves the team communication and engagement, and also make visible the incidents found. Iteration review. Also we have the revisions or demos that are shown to the client after every sprint. Iteration retrospective. On retrospective meetings, we see what things are well done and what things should be improved on the team. Sprint closing. During the sprint closure, we write the iteration notes and ship the deliverables made. Also, we must close the sprint in the tool. Release closing. The release notes are written and the product deliverables shipped to the client. Also, we should release the releases in Jira. Monitoring and control. At this time, we must send the status reports and make metrics useful for the project. Also, we have to send to the customer the satisfaction survey, and we can do it through the Customer Advocate Program tool. We can track the process adherence we have during our project life in Process and Product Quality Assurance tool. Also, some risks or improvements should be submitted. And finally, project closure. At the end of the project, we must get the sign-off of the client and write the lesson learned. As mentioned above, Jira allows the project management. In Globant, we have two instances, private and public. The difference between us is that the private instance will only have Globant members instead of the public one that allows the client access to the project. So if the client needs access to the project, it will be created in the public instance. At the time of project creation tools in Globant, this question is asked to the project manager to create the project in the corresponding instance. Jira is managed with two concepts: issues and projects. Issues on Jira is an entity that allows modeling concepts. Each entity has a workflow with their states and transitions that gives life to that entity. For example, user story, bugs, generic task, etc. Then we will see in more detail. A project in Globant is a project in Jira that will contain a set of issues. These issues will be able to show in components and versions that also will be created in the tool. Jira is a very flexible tool to model the issue types and their workflows according to the specific needs of the organization. Let's see the implementation of Jira in Globant. The issue types available are: story. A user story describes functionality of a system that will be valuable for a non-development team of a system or software. Bug was created to describe an incorrect or unexpected result, or when the functionality behaves in unintended ways. The owner of this issue type is the QC analyst. Change request. This issue type has to be used to describe a requirement change. The broker owner and client roles are very important because the changes needed impacts on the project walkthrough. Decision analysis and resolution. We use this issue when we need to take a decision with different alternatives available. Design review. The design review issue type allows you to make a review for project design or architecture. This issue type should be submitted by the technical lead, attaching all the architecture documentation required for the review, and will be reviewed by a special group that includes most of the technical directors. Epic. Epic issue type is used when a story includes too many uncertainties to tell just how big it is, or when the story's requirements are known, but the effort to complete it in a single sprint is too huge. Generic task should be used when you need to perform a task that has no relation to a particular user story. For example, regression test, product integration, documentation, etc. Lesson learned is a particular issue type that let the project teammates know about problems or successes during the project. If the lesson learned is approved, it converts in a knowledge base for all projects. After closing the lesson learned, the issue will be shared with all Globant's project managers. It's important to remember that at the moment of classifying the lesson learned, later it will be shared with the entire organization and it should display useful information for all the projects. Project waiver request. We use this issue when we need an exception for some practice. A project may request one or more waivers when it is not possible to adhere to organizational processes as defined. The waiver requires studio partner approval, and these have to be attached to the issue. Risk. The risk issue type is used for monitoring particular situations or issues inside a project. Technical task or subtask should be used in order to granulate a user story in development and testing subtask. Precondition, set test, test, and test execution are issue types for managing the testing of the project. Let's see now the Agile board in Jira. Once the project manager requests the project creation at all Globant tools through a ticket in Jira, private instance with the issue type project creation request in QCI organizational project, the project is created in Jira. Then it's time to create the board that will allow the project management. In Jira, go into Agile button, Manage Boards. You can create a Scrum board for Agile projects or a Kanban for maintenance and consultancy projects. Click on Create Board, create a Scrum board, and you must select the option Board from an existing project, and then Create. Next, complete the name of the board, select the project, and Create Board. Once the board has been created and set up, we select it in order to carry out the project management. Here you can see the general view of the board. This is an example. Clicking on Backlog option, you can create the versions, also called releases, from the version panel. Then you can create epics from the epic panel or from the Create Issue button. In order to maintain the traceability of the project's issues, you can create the user stories of the backlog and associate them with the corresponding epics and versions. After the creation of the backlog, you can manage the sprint backlog. When you are ready, you are allowed to start the sprint. In order to perform the release planning activities, you must first create the versions which will then be released. So, clicking here, version training, we write a name, a description, a start date, and release date, and then create. So we can see the version create in the version panel here. Then create the epics from the epic panel. Create epic, epic name, a summary, and then create. So here you can see the epic created in the epic panel. Then create the user stories from Create Issue button. Complete all the fields and then create. So here we can see all the user stories created in the backlog. Having both types of issue created, we can link a user story with the corresponding epic using drag and drop. So drag and drop with the epic and then drag and drop with the version. For the estimation of the user stories, Globan recommends the poker planning technique with using story point scale. Once the estimation is reached, the results should be reflected in each user story. Clicking in each user story, all information and the allowed action are shown at the right of the screen. So here you can indicate the estimate in story points of the user story, for example 5. For more information about poker planning and story point used, we invite you to visit the Globan Processes site. Into Training and Guidelines section, you can find relevant information about that. At the beginning of each sprint, a planning meeting is performed in which all the agreements and commitments between the development team and the product owner will be generated. During the iteration planning or sprint planning, we will do the following things. To agree the iteration goals and negotiate which user stories from the product backlog will be committed to the iteration backlog. After that, we will break down iteration user stories into estimated tasks. In order to create a sprint in Jira, you just have to press the button Create a Sprint. After the goal of the sprint is defined, the team defines which user stories will they commit to develop. So drag and drop the user stories to include in the sprint. In order to break down the user stories in technical tasks, we'll click on each user story. We look for the subtask section in the panel on the right of the screen. By clicking on the Create Subtask button, a window will open to fill with the task needed. This can also be done on the View User Story screen by clicking in More Create Subtask. The technical task has a classification that can be filled by clicking any option of the list. Some of these classifications can be Analyze, Design, Development, Functional Walkthrough, Code Review, etc. So here I complete the assignee, the technical task type, a summary, a description, and it's very important at this moment to perform a low-level estimation in hours, indicating how much time this task will take. We'll put the estimation here. For example, 5 hours. If you want to use different measures, you need to use the right letter. For example, D for days or M for minutes. And then create. From the processes area, we propose as a good practice to think in tasks that won't consume more than 8 hours because the advance of those tasks is easier to control and monitor. Remember, if we don't estimate all the tasks, when the sprint starts, the tool will generate the reports with incomplete information. For tasks that belong to a sprint but are not related to a user story, we will create generic tasks. For example, tasks for documentation, integration test, retrospective meetings. These tasks have also classification and should be estimated. In original estimate. Having the sprint backlog broken down in tasks and estimate, we can make the commitment and start the product development for the sprint. To start the sprint, we click on Start the Sprint. The tool will show a screen with a sprint name that can be edited, the duration, and the start and end dates. One of the great advantages of Scrum is its transparency, the ability to show what is happening in real time. The taskboard has a grid with 4 columns. In the first column is the user story with their tasks to be developed in To-Do. As we start working, tasks will be moved with drag and drop to In Progress column. If a task can be continued for any reason, it will be moved to Block column until it can be continued. Finished tasks will be moved to Done column. Using the taskboard allows us to see if we have many non-finished tasks, identify which tasks are blocking our progress, team synchronization, and check if a bottleneck exists, for example, a lot of testing tasks pending. While we keep the daily Scrum or Scrum meeting is a good moment to monitor and control the task work. It's important that every team member track effort in their tasks assigned on a daily basis. This ensures that project monitoring and control that can be done from Jira counts with proper and updated date. To track effort on tasks, you must select More and Log Work. In the time spent field, enter the number of amount of time to be logged. For example, 4 hours. In the Date Start field, click the calendar icon to select the date time when you start work. If you want to manually adjust the remaining time, you must click on the Set or Reduce by option and set the amount desired, otherwise click on the Adjust Automatically option. You can put a word description and then log. And finally, when all subtasks were done, complete the sprint. So here, click on Complete Sprint and then click Complete. Issues incompleted return to the product backlog. Let's see now one of the basics reports from the methodology, the burn-down chart, and then the velocity chart. Jira has a very important set of reports, all available in the report section here of a board. In this course, we have seen the burn-down chart and the velocity chart, but as you can see, there are more. Clicking in all reports, the full range of available reports is displayed. For example, Epic Report, Epic Burn-down, Version Report, Release Burn-down, and more. So, we can see the burn-down chart first. As a definition, we can say that the burn-down chart is a graphical representation of work left to do versus time for a given period of time. Teams use a sprint burn-down chart to track the product development effort remaining in a sprint. Generally, the burn-down chart consists of X-axis to display working days and Y-axis to display remaining effort. Ideal effort as a guideline is the gray line and real progress of effort. Always check that the green line, time spent, and the red line, remaining time, intersect in half to get with the commitment. Once the sprint is finished, the tool calculates the team's velocity and reports it in the velocity chart. The velocity chart tracks the amount of work completed from sprint to sprint. This helps you determine your team's velocity and estimate the work your team can realistically achieve in future sprints. Then each sprint ends with a retrospective. At this meeting, the team reflects on its own process. They inspect their behavior and take action to adapt it for future sprints. They analyze the things that were done well, those that were done poorly, and determine root causes, strength, and weakness. Then the development team decides by consensus which improvement actions are going to be carried out to the following sprint. These actions and their impacts will be reviewed at the next retrospective meeting. We have different ways to search in Jira. Going to Issues, Search for Issues. There are three ways. Quick Search, where you indicate a keyword for a quick search. Then the Basic Search, where it's filtered by project, type of issue, reporter, etc. And in selecting more, you can add more search fields. For example, test QCI project, issue types, story, and if you want to put some fields more. And then you have the advanced search that uses jQuery language, where you can build more advanced queries, for example, bugs created in the last month. And then each of these filters can be saved, selecting Save As, and being stored as favorites. Here, favorite filters. They can also be shared with the team or create filters for a personal monitoring. If you want to share, you click in Details, Edit Permissions, and then share with a team or group or project. And click in Add and Saved. A feature that we want to emphasize that we find very useful is to create issues in bulk. Users can import data to create issues in bulk and also edit issues in bulk via CSV file import. Clicking in Issues, import issues from CSV. This gives users the ability to create and edit issues using files in CSV format, as well as using exported CSV data from a variety of systems and databases. Jira gives you the ability to create filters to select specific information to show in the gadget. So, going to Dashboards, Manage Dashboards, you can create one to monitor and control the project. So once created, the dashboard generates the gadgets that many use filters and other projects itself. For example, this gadget use a filter, save filter, but others use the project, the name of the project of the board. So here you have all the gadgets you want to monitor and control your project. All the things we saw in this training, you will find them on the Organizational Processes website, here, Quality and Continuous Improvement site. Go into Tools Informations, you can find Jira and all the things we saw in this training. For more information about how to implement to use your Jira in your project, you will find a guideline called Being Agile with Tools that indicates very detailed how we can implement these practices. We have a section that details the days of our question and answer sessions divided on different categories. You will find a question and answer for Jira and Atlassian tools too. Also, if you have doubts about certain things and you still don't understand after looking at the site, you can write us to our emails shown on this slide. Thanks everyone for your time.